You've been listening to the True Idaho News Podcast. Unfiltered news and opinion for the citizens of Idaho. Get more true news by visiting trueidahonews.com. If you'd like to support this podcast, visit trueidahonews.com/support. Thanks for listening.
Good evening, everyone. Klaas here with True Idaho News, and this is kind of a special podcast today. I don't typically do these on Saturdays, and I don't typically do these in the evening. But the things that have been going on lately are worth coming out and doing this for. I've put quite a bit of time in this. So a little background. A little while ago, a few days ago, I had Senators Christy Zito and Glenina Zeiderfeld on True Idaho News for an interview, which went on for about 2.5 hours. And why did it go on so long? Well, there was a lot to unpack. So if you're not familiar, there's been a little bit of a riff going on within, a lot of a riff, unfortunately, going on within the Conservative Party of Idaho. And this is happening within our conservative legislators and the so-called Gang of Eight. And it's been ugly. And I'm not going to go through all of it again. You can go back and you can watch that episode. And I encourage you to do so if you have any questions about what's going on. And even if you haven't heard of any of it, it would be important to go back and watch that, because these two ladies, these wonderful, wonderful senators, the kind of senators I really wish we had all of our senators had the kind of heart and integrity that and just poise that these two senators have. They're just wonderful Christian ladies, and they are wonderful leaders, and they truly do represent the Idaho Republican Party platform to a T. But since we did that interview, Brian Lenney, another Idaho senator, has taken to X in this wild barrage of posts to try to discredit and deflect and diminish the truths that were being told by these Idaho senators on that podcast and me. And so normally I wouldn't respond, but I mean, this has been wild, folks. Take a look at this. He has just gone on and on and on and on. And interestingly enough, I don't know if it's that he truly thinks the entire 2.5 hours were about him, because it may have been 2 seconds, maybe minutes, as I'm going to show you, that were about him. Or maybe he's just more concerned that it wasn't all about him. I really don't know what got under his skin so bad, but he went nuts. And so I want to respond to that a little bit. I want to unpack some of the untrue statements that he's making. I don't know if he's doing it intentionally or if he's just confused. Maybe I don't know. But I want to approach the statements that he's making. And so let's just dive in and get into this. So first of all, here we go. The accusations. So the very first thing that he posted, this is on July 16th. So it's been a couple days, but he said, on a podcast today, some random guy, I guess that's me, some random guy, dragged me through the mud. That's an interesting statement, and you're going to see why in a minute. Cozying up with two D.C. lobbyist-controlled Idaho state senators, claiming I've lost my faith in God and compromised myself, all because I did not score a perfect A+ score on some obscure AI-generated scorecard thrown together by an Idaho blogger. Now, if he stopped there, I'm sure there's a lot of questions, and I'm sure people are just wondering what in the world is going on. And so I'm going to actually take that sentence by sentence, and we're going to talk about that. But he didn't stop there. He went on and he said he did not name a single specific bill, vote, or action to back up his attack, just vague sanctimonious drivel, while the two DC-controlled senators nodded in agreement. That is such a. Anyway, sorry. I'll try not to get into the weeds here. No examples, no evidence, just hot air and moral posturing. The sheer stupidity of tying my faith or integrity to some half-baked chat GPT algorithm-driven rating without a shred of concrete detail is beyond absurd. It's intellectual laziness at its finest. And by the way, my receipts are pinned to my profile. Now, I'm not really sure what that means, but okay. Do his podcast guests have anything to show for their time in the 2025 Idaho session? That statement right there, by the way, is a foretelling, and a lot of this is a foretelling on how this next election cycle is going to go. So pay attention to it and pay attention to all of this, because all of this is foretelling about what we have to expect coming up. So let's dig in just a little bit. Let's take a look. I'm going to break this down. Excuse me. Starting with, on a podcast today, some random guy dragged me through the mud. Okay, Brian, let's see. So the podcast that he's talking about, again, is this podcast that I did with an interview with the two senators. And during that interview, let me just play a little clip for you that maybe will give you a little bit of insight into how long. I actually, let me just do this. Let me just say this. I used, because it was 2.5 hours long and I wanted to be accurate, just in case, because I couldn't imagine why he thought this whole thing was about him. I used AI to take a transcript of the entire video and searched Brian Lenney. And here's how many times it came up. I want to bring this up. I want you to take a look at who signed this. We have Scott Herndon, who's no longer there. We had Senator Phil Hart, Heather Scott, Dale Hawkins, Ben Tooze, Josh Tanner, Joe Alfieri, Tina Lambert, Elaine Price, Brian Lenney, Tammy Nichols, Chris Trakel, and Senator Kerry Bajurk. So Brian Lenney, 85%, 15% of the time, voting against the platform. Okay, did you catch that? That's it. 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes to be exactly accurate, of the entire podcast. And that's how many times I mentioned Brian Lenney's name. So again, Brian, I don't know if you wish I had mentioned you more. So I guess I'm going to give you the time that you think you deserve, because we're going to talk a lot about you today, and we're going to talk about these posts that you put up. So maybe this will satisfy the need. I'm really not sure what happened there, but so let's first of all, I don't know if I say that much about Brian Lenney. Let's just go back to the accusation that he made. And on a podcast today, some random guy dragged me through the mud. So that was dragging him through the mud. The second accusation that he made is that I was cozying up with two DC lobbyist controlled Idaho senators. Now, folks, I take exception to this, because not only is this untrue, it's intentionally misleading, and it's a half truth intended to discredit two of the best senators that we have in Idaho, and I'm going to show you why. So this is who he's speaking of by DC lobbyists. It's Maria Nate. And let me just go ahead and bring this up so you can see the entire thing. And the reason I know this is who he's talking about, because he said it on X. He said, during the legislative session, these two senators, along with others in their group, met with a DC paid lobbyist, Maria Nate of the State Freedom Caucus Network, every single morning of the session to discuss bills, strategy, how they should vote, etc. This isn't controversial or subjective. They openly talk about it. Okay, so he says that. Is she a lobbyist? Yes, she is. She's right here in Idaho, by the way. She lives in Idaho. Her husband is Ron Nate, who is the current head of the Idaho IFF. So to say that she's a DC lobbyist makes it sound like she's out of DC, right? And I know that's intentional. That he says this a lot. He likes to make it look as though some person clear out in DC is over here trying to control Idaho politics. And I'm sure they are for some of the other legislators, but not here. Because here's the part that he doesn't tell you, and this is why it's so misleading, and this is why it's so just kind of disgusting that he even dives into this, because she's also the secretary of the Idaho GOP. And as GOP representatives, our senators should be speaking with members of the Idaho GOP. In fact, Maria's very open, and she says, right down here at the bottom, I want to zoom in on this at the bottom so we can get there. Let me get some things out of the way so I can actually bring this up so we can take a nice look. So look here. Maria believes strongly in the Idaho GOP platform and will work hard to make sure its ideals are promoted by our candidates. It's her job. It is her job to meet. And the fact that they're meeting with her daily is a good thing to make sure that the way that they're voting is in line with the Idaho Republican Party platform. In fact, I wish more of our representatives would meet with her. That's what she's supposed to be doing. So to make this wild claim that it's technically, okay, there's the Idaho State Freedom Caucus Network. Okay, she did register as a lobbyist. In fact, she needs to do that to protect herself legally because a lot of things come down. But to say that she's a DC lobbyist and that's who they're meeting with without telling the whole truth, if you don't tell the whole truth, you're telling a lie, Brian. It's not truthful. You need to stop. It's unbecoming of an Idaho senator. As a matter of fact, you and several of the others have met with her regularly in the past. So let's just stop the ugly DC politics. This is what happens in DC, and let's stick to our Idaho. Okay, let's keep Idaho. Let's not go down that path. It's disgusting. It's untruthful. It's misleading, and it's just not what you should be doing. Okay, enough on that. So moving on, he also says, and another untruthful claim, and I'm going to show you this in a minute. He says that I was claiming that he lost his faith in God and compromised himself. Let's play the clip. Here, we didn't come here to beat up on anybody. I just want to show you the receipts. This is what happens when you start compromising when you lose your faith, when you stop trusting in God to deliver you, and you start going, oh boy, if we don't compromise and bring in Moyle and keep Moyle in there, then we might get somebody worse. Well, you know what? You might have got somebody better. And this is where it started. That was the seed of doubt that has reared its ugly head to get to where we are today, because it's all about Mike Moyle. And that, to me, from what I'm seeing, he is at the center of all of the controversy and all of this riff. And it's because you didn't hold your faith. You didn't hold strong. It's like Peter got out on the water, and at first he was looking at Jesus, and he was walking on the water right alongside him, and he took his eyes off the prize. He took his eyes off of Jesus, and he sank. And we're watching some of our legislators start to sink because they're compromising. I want you to hold your faith. Get back on the water. Get your eyes back where it's supposed to be, because that's what we sent you there for. Not all the bickering and infighting. We sent you there to go vote with the platform. Okay, so if you didn't watch the interview, that might be a little bit confusing. So I had brought up Brian Lenney and all of the other folks that signed a letter, which I'm going to show you this letter in a little bit. But I had brought up all of their pictures on the screen with their with a scorecard that a local group is putting out, which is and I'm going to talk more about that, but it was their scorecards. And so I brought up their scorecards just to show how their ratings are on how often they vote in line with the Idaho GOP platform and how often they vote against it. And so you can see right there, I didn't say what was his exact quote? So that he lost his faith in God and compromised himself. I said that my intention there was fully to say that had they had more faith, then they would not have felt the need to vote for Mike Moyle. As you're going to see, it was driven by fear, not faith, that vote. There's a letter that clearly just outlines it. I'm going to show this to you. And that had he had kept his eye on Jesus, had he kept his eye on the ball and had faith, that we wouldn't have ended up with somebody in there who is causing so much strife and division within the Republican Party. And you'll see this as I go through the rest of this today. But he makes it look like I'm just making some kind of a wild claim about him. That's not what was happening. And it wasn't all about him. He wants us to be all about him. That's kind of a narcissistic take on it. But it's not all about him. It's about everything that's happening within our freedom network, within our Idaho conservative network. So let's just keep going. And this is all going to make more sense as we keep going along. So the next, let's get past that again. So the next wild claim that he's making here is that this was all because I did not score a perfect A+ score on some obscure AI generated scorecard. Now you listen to the clip. Is that what I said? That's not what I said. Not at all what I said. But this is the claim. This is the way he's trying to twist it. This way he's trying to discredit it. You know why he tried to discredit something so hard? If he had something to discredit, something that was untrue, you would just simply bring it up and say, this is what he said that was untrue. But that's not. He makes up these wild claims and kind of twists and contorts and plays DC politics with it, which I think is just disgusting. We don't want this in Idaho, but this is what's happening. And he said, all because I did not score a perfect A+ score on some obscure AI generated scorecard. Now, what in the world is he talking about there? Well, I'm going to show you. So, before we get into that, let's give you a little bit of background in history, because you're going to need the background in history in order to understand what the scorecard is, why it even came up. So there was a letter that went out. Here's the letter I was talking about a little bit ago. And this letter was written to Young Americans for Liberty, Make Liberty Win PAC, and Barrett Young. And I'm sure a lot of you are going, well, who in the world are they and why was their letter written? So let's first unpack who they are. First of all, Young Americans for Liberty is the largest grassroots liberty organization on Americans' college campuses. And this is nationwide. They do a heck of a lot of good. They have campus chapters. So YAL operates nearly 400 chapters nationwide, engaging thousands of students in activism, hosting events, providing educational resources to promote libertarian philosophy. Okay, so they're promoting libertarian philosophy, but a lot of libertarian philosophy, if you know anything about it, greatly aligns with the Idaho Republicans, because they want less government. They want less government control. They want less government spending. They want you to have more freedom, more of your money. They want the government out of your lives as much as they possibly can. And I think we need to have more of our youth. I don't know about you, but I think we need to have more of our youth engaging in politics. And I think they need to be engaging in understanding of conservatism, which is exactly what YAL is doing. They have an Operation Win at the Door. That was launched back in 2018. This initiative mobilizes activists to knock on doors for pro-liberty candidates, claiming over 3 million doors knocked and supporting the election of over 320 state legislators through its Hazlitt Coalition, which we're going to talk about Hazlitt. But first, I want to say, this is how you win. This is how we had the Magic Valley Miracle. We had the Magic Valley Miracle because we had the support of these guys, and we had financial support that came in from them, and because they send people out to hit doors. This is how you win against the kind of money that's coming in from these corporations such as BlackRock, State Street, all of those that globalist organizations that have billions and billions and billions of dollars to pour into elections. Well, how do you fight that? You have to have boots on the ground, and that's what YAL provides, and that's what Hazlitt provides. Hazlitt Coalition is a network of over 300 libertarian state legislators, as of 2022, by the way, aimed at holding lawmakers accountable to pro-liberty principles and aiding their ascent to higher office. YALCon, let me get me off the screen here, they hold regional training events held in cities like San Francisco and Washington, D.C., featuring prominent libertarian figures like Ron Paul and Rand Paul to train student leaders. And they have their Students' Right campaign, which y'all partners with the legal firms to challenge campuses' free speech restrictions, impacting over 2 million students annually. So if you like that, then you're going to understand why some of our legislators might want to work together with them. And by the way, these guys don't dictate what your legislators do. They ask our legislators, hey, how can we help you? What areas do you need help in? And that's where they offer their support. So Make Liberty Win is another one that was addressed in that letter. So let's talk about them for just a minute. They are the only no-compromise conservative force on the campaign trail. They seek to shrink the federal government and give control back to the state legislators by talking to the American people at their doorstep. Again, they're trying to give states back control. Take it away from the feds, give it back to the states. I know that aligns with the GOP platform. And then they have their one more difference. They say one more door will make the difference. Let me just go ahead and blow that up a little bit for you here so you can read this a little bit better. Make Liberty Win is dedicated to deploying activists to state legislative races across the nation. Our activists, stakeholders, and candidates are fighting to advance the cause of liberty and defend our only special interest, the U.S. Constitution. Make Liberty Win specializes in mobilizing voters to engage in primary and general elections through direct voter contact. Door knocking, phone calls, and texting are the best way to establish an authentic connection in today's political environment. I can attest to that. We did a lot of door knocking in the last election cycle, by the way. Our activists cut through the noise of the he said, she said. Make Liberty Win is uniquely positioned to outwork any opponent with the most dedicated ground troops in the country. The candidates we support must show the same level of commitment and passion for the principles of limited government. And then finally, Barrett Young. Who's Barrett Young? He's the director of Young Americans for Liberty, YAL. Okay, so that's who these folks are that's in this letter. So let's talk a little bit more about the letter. And by the way, all this infighting has lost us a lot of these resources, which is really sad. We're coming up on another election cycle. It would be nice to have those resources, and all of this infighting caused, and I'm going to show you by Mike Moyle, has cost us a lot, has made it so where you, the voter, is going to have to get out and do more, which frankly is a good thing if you'll do it. But so let's go back to the letter. Okay, so this letter was addressed to Young Americans for Liberty, Make Liberty Win PAC, and Barrett Young. And in this letter, all of these people down here, okay, and I'm going to bring these back. In fact, let's just go ahead and bring them up real quick. Okay, Scott Herndon. I'm gonna name your name again, by the way. Scott Herndon, Senator Phil Hart, Rep. Heather Scott, Dale Hawkins, Ben Tooze, Josh Tanner, Joel Ferry, Tina Lambert, Elaine Price, Brian Lenney, Tammy Nichols, Senator Chris Trakel, and Carl Bajert. Those are the people who signed this letter, and this letter went to those organizations that we just talked about. In the letter, dated April 13th, they said, "Dear Young Americans for Liberty, Make Liberty Win PAC, Barrett Young. We, the undersigned, are current Idaho legislators and current Hazlet members who are concerned about the potential plans or attempts of this organization to publicly or privately mount a campaign to unseat Representative Mike Moyle, the current Idaho Speaker of the House. We believe," they say, "Speaker Moyle presently offers the best opportunity for Hazlet members and conservative legislators to continue to make inroads into getting more liberty-minded people into the legislature and into key decision-making roles within the House." I want you to pay a lot of attention to that. Okay, it's really important that you understand what was driving them. It was fear. They were afraid that if they didn't get Mike Moyle, they were going to get somebody worse. Notice they don't talk about how great his voting record is. And I'm going to show you that voting record in a minute, and you're going to understand why they didn't mention that. Their entire focus here was to keep Moyle in there because they thought that by cozying up to him, that they could get some chair seats into the key decision-making roles within the House. We also believe losing Rep. Moyle in the primary election will create unnecessary chaos within the Republican-held House and greatly hamper our efforts to keep Idaho a red state and a beacon for free, liberty and freedom. He's doing the exact opposite. I'm going to show you. I'm going to bring the receipts today, everybody. And he's doing exactly the opposite of what they're saying that they want to keep him in there for. We are currently witnessing this issue dividing our conservative base. With 9 Hazlitt members fighting to stay in office, we believe this is a misdirection of resources and a strategic error. We value the relationship we have with y'all and appreciate you hearing our concerns on this important issue. We hope you will take this into consideration. Signed, everybody I just read. And the first time that I mentioned Brian Lenney during that interview was when I read his name right here. Okay. So let's get in a little bit deeper. So you see what's happening here with this letter is they're sending a warning. Don't mess with Moyle. We don't want you to mess with Moyle. We want to cozy up with Moyle. Moyle's going to get us what we want. Their faith wasn't in God to put somebody in that position better than Moyle. He's barely better than Scott Bedke, and that's a low bar. And that's what they were claiming. And frankly, the people that they were concerned were going to end up Speaker of the House that might take his place didn't get in. Which is really sad because now we have division, we have strife. We could have just gotten rid of Moyle and we wouldn't have any of this. But let's just keep going. So here's the claim. He said he's used to it. He was talking to somebody else on there talking about people attacking him or whatever. I don't know. But he says, but the new part is saying I lost my faith in God because of an AI scorecard. Well, what's he, and he said that this AI scorecard was thrown together by an Idaho blogger. Well, okay, let's see if that's the truth or not. Let's go into the scorecards. So the scorecard in question here was put together. It's Idaho's first AI-generated legislative scorecard. I talked about this quite a bit. I went in depth to this on that interview, but I'm going to go into this one again for those that need to be brought up to speed. The Idaho GOP platform scorecard was put together by Stop Idaho Rhinos. And it wasn't just thrown together. And but first of all, by some Idaho blogger. Stop Idaho Rhinos is run off of 100% donor support. They don't have any corporate backers, and they wouldn't want to take their money anyway. So they're asking people to donate in this post. But I want to show you the key here is that they are a PAC, and they're just run off of donor support. And it's not just some blogger. Here's what he said. A little over a week ago, when they unveiled this, when we unveiled our legislative scorecard, we rated 316 bills, which was every bill that was voted on in either the House, the Senate, or both, with the exception of bills that received unanimous support or opposition. 316 bills. This isn't a small sample size. What we did not tell you during that scorecard is it is 100% AI generated. Now, going back to what he had to say, he claimed it was some kind of chat GPT AI to make you think. This is what this is designed to do, is to make you think. We all know chat GTP or chat GPT is skewed left leaning. You see what he's trying to do here? He's trying to tie AI that they used here to the chat GPT that is left leaning. He's trying to discredit it by making that tie. But that is not at all what this is. Let's continue. For several years now, we and others have tried to rate bills with AI. See, they didn't just throw this together. Okay, they've been working on this for several years. For several years now, we and others have tried to rate bills with AI. We failed each time because AI just wasn't there yet. It couldn't properly analyze the Idaho GOP platform and then compare bills to that platform until now. We were finally able to successfully train artificial intelligence to do both, read the platform and compare it to each bill. And not only that, it could challenge itself, its own rating, to make sure that it got it right. While we don't go into specifics on how we did this, which, by the way, I wouldn't go into specifics either. This is cool stuff here, right? And while we won't go into specifics on how we did this, we can promise that AI rated each bill very accurately because we had fail safes included in our AI training. So here's the thing. We've seen AI get things wrong. I know AI can get things wrong. I own a tech company, okay? I have to try to work with this stuff. But here's what it's really, really good at. Comparing A and B, analyzing and determining if A equals B. In this case, does this vote, it can quickly go through and look at all the bills. It can look at all the bills. And then it can compare those to the Idaho GOP platform, which they have. It's a written platform. So it's not something that they're just kind of trying to guess. They're taking the written Idaho GOP platform, everything they stand for, everything that's expected of our representatives, everything that we expect of the Republican Party is put into this AI. And then each of the bills, as they come out, it's reading the bills and it's just quickly saying, does this align with the GOP platform or does it not? That it doesn't have any access to the rest of the internet, only the GOP platform and the bills. So it can't be skewed. It's garbage in, garbage out, good stuff in, good stuff out. It's got all the good stuff. So it can compare these very, very accurately, as I'm going to show you. Brian Lenney claims I don't bring the receipts. So here you go, Brian. We're bringing the receipts. Unfortunately, the receipts aren't going to make you look too good because you're lying and misdirecting. And here's what he's really upset about. Because this Idaho Republican Platform scorecard didn't give him a perfect, it gave him a B. It didn't give him a perfect rating, but it gave him a B. It gave him an 85%. It just said 80, all this is saying is that 85% of the time, based on the Idaho GOP platform and the bills that he voted on and how he voted on those bills, 85% of the time he got it right. Now, that's not too bad. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and knock it. It's not too bad. The challenge is that we have several other legislators that they are attacking that have a much better score than this. They are trying to, there are people within the GOP, and I'm not talking the rhinos. I'm talking within the ones that we all put there because we wanted liberty-minded people in there, but because now we have some personality conflicts, they want to get rid of them. And you can see it right here. I'm bringing the receipts, Brian. With Brian Lenney is trying to discredit them. He's calling them DC-controlled lobbyists. Look at the language. See what's happening here. Don't take my word for it. Look at the evidence. Because they didn't go for Moyle, and also because they didn't go for a pay raise, which I'm going to show you here, the pay raise that we all thought they didn't need to get. Yeah, because they didn't vote for the pay raise and they didn't vote for Moyle, and they didn't throw their support behind it. These guys are ticked off, and now they're trying to discredit them. And they're using some underhanded tactics to do it. That's what it boils down to, but we're going to keep going. So here's the claim. The sheer stupidity of tying my faith or integrity to some half-baked ChatGPT algorithm-driven rating without a shred of concrete detail is beyond absurd. Okay, you've seen. Is this some kind of half-baked ChatGPT algorithm? Well, let me bring some receipts. Let me bring you some concrete detail. Let me show you how it sizes up to another platform that does ratings that Brian Lenney seems to like. Well, before I get in there, I forgot this. Yeah, this is important. Before I get there, let's just take a look at what some of the other human-driven indexes have to say. So the Idaho Republican Platform AI gives them an 85%, a B. Idaho Freedom Foundation, who also Brian Lenney's teched off at now because he didn't get a perfect 100 score. It's kind of a narcissistic look at it, but whatever. Because he got a B-. He's ticked at them too. Go read through what he and some of the other ones on the other side have been doing. They're all attacking. They're now attacking Idaho Freedom Foundation. Idaho Freedom Foundation has been instrumental in getting true conservative legislators into our Idaho Senate and House. But he doesn't care about that. He's upset because his feelers got hurt. And the Freedom Index also gave him an 83 score. So it seems pretty consistent right now with how others are scoring him. But you know which one he likes? Right there on his X page. You can take a look at it. Club for Growth said, I'm one of the highest rated Republican senators driving economic growth in Idaho, because they gave him 100%. Okay, they did. They gave him 100%. They gave him an A+. I went and I looked myself. I put that together, that what you're seeing there on the screen. It did that whole little icon up there came from me. Because I went and I looked. I wanted to dig in. I wanted to understand, what is this Club for Growth? Who are they? I've heard of them, but I've never really taken the time to dig in, because frankly, I would rather take my information from Idaho-based people like Idaho Freedom Foundation and the GOP scorecard. But hey, let's take a look. So who is Club for Growth, by the way, that he's touting? And I'm going to compare them to the scorecard, by the way, put together by the AI. We're going to take a look at this. Let's deep dive. Let's get into the receipts that Brian so badly wants me to get into. So Club for Growth is a foundation that educates. This is what they say about themselves. Okay, this is right from their website. The foundation educates the public about pro-growth policies. I'm reading down here on the bottom. The foundation conducts comprehensive examinations of voting records. The foundation's goal is to inform the public and bring awareness to lawmakers. Their methodology, because I want to know the methodology, and kudos to them for putting their methodology right out there for everybody to read. Oh, by the way, the same way the Idaho Freedom Foundation does, just in case you're wondering. You can tell I'm a little sarcastic. I'm so sick and tired of this. I'm so sick and tired of politics as usual. This kind of politics just ticks me off. It disgusts me. And Idaho's better than this, but here we are. But here's something that's important. Let's get back over there. I'm getting myself all worked up and getting past here. The foundation examines legislative votes related to the club's immediate pro-economic growth policy goals. So it's their goals, and which are reducing or eliminating tax rates and enacting tax reform. Okay, I'm on board with that. Limited government through limited spending and budget reform. I'm on board with that too. This sounds a lot like the GOP platform. Regulatory reform and deregulation. Ending abusive lawsuits through medical malpractice and tort reform. I'm not sure what that means. That one throws a little red flag, but maybe it's something good. I would need to dig in a little bit further. I didn't get a chance to. Hopefully, it's on the. It's not helping big medicine and big pharma and hurting our ability to go after them when they do things wrong. But I don't know. But ending abusive lawsuits through medical malpractice and tort reform. Expanding school choice, I'm on board with that, and implementing term limits. Hey, these sound like everything that the GOP platform is on. So if this is truly their criteria, here's my logic. If this is truly their criteria, then if we look at their scoring of some of our legislators, it should be pretty close to AI if the AI is accurate, right? I'm a techie. This is my brain is a logic mind. It's how it sees things. I see the world through logic. So if A equals B, then we can say that they're probably doing a good job with this AI. Now, here's where I do have a little bit of a concern, a little bit of a question, is when I look down here and I see this scorecard is based on selected votes of importance to the foundation. Okay, so it's not all of them. And it does not include the complete voting record of any legislator. There are inherent limitations in judging the overall qualifications of any legislator based on selected voting record, and the foundation does not endorse or oppose any legislator for public office. Okay, so that good little disclaimer that they have there. But hey, you know what? Kudos for them for being transparent and putting it right there on their website. So then they kind of go through their computation and additional factors. And if you want to go look at all of this, it looks like they're probably doing a pretty good job. It should be pretty accurate. So let's take a look. It says scores are computed on a scale of 0 to 100. Let's just go ahead and look at this real close. Each vote or action in the rating is assigned a certain number of points depending on its relative importance. If a lawmaker casts a correct vote, the scorecard will denote it with that number. If a lawmaker casts an incorrect vote, the scorecard will denote that vote with a hyphen. Absences are not counted. Significant as an X on the scorecard, though. The foundation reserves the right to do so if, in its judgment, a lawmaker's position was otherwise discernible. Okay, so they're going to take a little couple guesses and put them in there, and I'm okay with this. They're completely transparent about how they do things. Some people don't like IFF, but they're transparent about what they do, so they're not misleading anybody. They're just very transparent. These are the matrix. This is how we're going to assign a score to a bill. And I like that they assign the score to a bill. I like that IFF assigns a score to a bill. And I like that the chat GPT, that the AI that's being used by Stop Idaho Rhinos is attaching it to the bill, not the legislator. Okay, because that's kind of subjective to give it to the legislator. But if you just simply rate the bills before the legislator votes on them, or absent any idea of how they voted, which is what the AI doesn't have any idea how they voted, until it then tallies up and says, okay, now that we've assigned a score to the bills themselves, let's see how the legislators voted on them. This is it's a very good way of doing things. And so I'm okay with this. So going back over now to Stop Idaho Rhinos and their AI, they said either way with AI, the human emotions and bias are taken out of the rating process. This is why I love this. I love what they're doing here. Each bill is ranked in black and white with only the Idaho GOP platform as its guide. The AI that we trained had no outside sources to look at except for the platform and the bill. It had no knowledge of how the vote ended up or how each legislator voted. It simply gave us a +1, 0 for neutral, or a -1. It then gave us a long printout of why it came to that conclusion. You know what's good about this? So they can go back and they can look at it. They can check it. They can make sure that it's on track. So they get a long printout, and then it challenges its own rating. So it goes back and looks at it again. I'm not sure how they put that into it, but I like checks and balances. And finally, it gave us the final conclusion along with a summary. Now, because we are a small operation, want to protect the work we did in training our AI, we only posted the summary on our site, not the whole process. But the reminder is that this scorecard did not rate any legislator. It only rated the legislation, just like I was talking about. The legislators just receive a grade based on their specific votes on the legislation that was rated. So here we go. The big reveal. It's the showdown. Let's see what happens when we compare the Idaho Republican Platform scorecard with the Club for Growth Foundation scorecard, the one that, Brian Lenney, you can't now discredit that one. If you don't like what I come up with here, this is the one you chose. This is the one you're touting. This is the one you're saying is so great and so accurate, and it's the gold standard, man. You're complaining about all the rest, but this one that gave you 100, you're happy with them. So here's the big showdown. Let's see how they do. Here's what I decided to do. I think the best way to do this is because Mike Moyle is at the center of all of this, Mike Moyle gets to assign all the chair positions. And I think it's important that we know those chair positions, who's there and how they're voting, and how each of these, both the AI and Club for Growth, rated their voting. How'd they rate the bills? And then how did those bills, in retrospect, how did that end up looking when you looked at how the legislators are voting on them? And I thought this would be a very good way to compare. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up, I've already done this, but I'm going to bring up for you to see all of the cabinet, all of the chair positions within that Mike Moyle chose, because you can know a guy by the people he surrounds himself with, the people he trusts. Who do you trust? Who do you trust? These are the guys he trusts. These are the ones he put in charge, by the way, of these chair positions, who get to determine when the bill's handed to them. They get to take a look at the bill and say, ooh, do we like this or do we not? Ooh, I don't like that. Let's slide it in. And, I know how might have to vote on this, and I might tick off one of my handlers. And if I tick off a handler, they're not going to give me my money. So I'm just going to stick this one in a bill, and we're not even going to bring it before the committee. That's the the games that are being played. So these are the people that he trusts to put in those positions to determine if a bill is even worthy of bringing out before that committee. And then the committee gets to debate it and decide if it's worthy of bringing before the House for a vote. And then the House votes on it, and everybody gets a score. So let's take a look. Here's the big showdown. So first of all, let's take a look at Moyles committee chairs. Here they are. So let's get a good clean look at these. This is how the Stop Idaho Rhinos, how their AI rated them on their votes. So we have a 69, that's a D. Wendy, we have a 57.8, that's an F. Lance Clow, that's an F. Let's look at their committee. I want to put them up there, by the way. Look at the appropriations. Wendy gets an F. This should scare you a little bit. Agriculture, okay. Business gets an F. That's Lance Clow over here in the Magic Valley. We need to get rid of that joker. But anyway, he's a Democrat. Commerce, that's a D minus. Education, that's we take a look at the state of education in Idaho. I guess that'd probably tell you. And let's continue going. There's 15 of them. So we get a look at environment, 71.3. That's a C. Okay, a little better than the D's and F's we've been sending. Brent Crane, Brent gets an 81. So I guess, 81% of the time he did a good job. 20% of the time he voted against the GOP platform, which isn't surprising. I've seen kind of how he does. Health and welfare, 69. That's a D plus. So almost a C. Almost got there. Bruce Skog gets a C. Okay, that's a solid middle of the road C. You notice how many A's there are? Not. Barbara, it gets a 71. That's a C. Okay, that's your local government. Let's look at resources. All right, so Ron gets a C minus, almost a D. Barely squeaked one out of there, buddy. Let's take a look at revenue and tax. Okay, that's a D minus. Brent Crane again over state affairs. I guess he likes Brendan there. And transportation, 67%, a D. And ways and means. That's where bills go to die, by the way. You want your best guy over there. If you want a bill to disappear, just hand it to Jeff. He'll make sure it goes bye-bye. That's a dirty committee. So anyway, overall, it doesn't look so hot. And so here's what I did. I took an average, added them all up, divided by 15. That's exactly how I came up with this. And here's the average in Moyles committee chairs. D plus. This is the guy. I want you to think about this. This is the guy. This is the hill they're dying on. Okay, they're ticking off Hazlitt. They're ticking off Yal. They're making enemies with these people who supported us and helped us put all the good people in there, by the way. Sending them a letter and threatening them, which they basically followed through with, gave them the boot because of this guy who his committee chairs have a 68.4% voting record. 68.4% of the time they vote in line with the GOP platform, which means that 72% of the time, 32% of the time, a third of the time they vote against the GOP platform. Now, is this the hill you're going to die on? Is this the guy that we want with that much power in the House? I don't. But hey, maybe you do. Maybe you do, Brent. And by the way, here's his score. 67.1, a D plus. But let's see the other side. So how did Brian Lenney's Club for Growth? It's not his Club for Growth, but it's the one that he touts. So how did they rate him? Okay, I had to put this together. I had to go through and look at all of these and build this. It took me a lot of time to go through and actually look at all of the scores. So I hope you take a moment to take a look at this with me. Let's just go ahead and dig in. So again, same people. B plus for Kevin Andrus in our resources. Appropriations, 43%. Lance Clow, 38%. Like I said, Magic Valley, pay attention. Commerce, D minus. Education, F. Environment got an A. I guess that's good. Ethics. That's Brent Crane. They gave him a C. That's worse than the score that the AI gave him. Health and welfare, D. Judiciary, A minus. I guess that's all right. Local government, another A. Good job. Let's take a look over here. Ron, resources, A. Revenue and tax, D plus. Brent Crane again, C. Transportation, C plus. And let me get me out of the way here so we can take a quick peek so you can see. And finally, business, an F. All right, you ready? Let me get this, pull up the next slide. So when you tally them all up, add them all together, divide by 15, 71.4%. Okay, oh, I didn't change that. Okay, this is my fault. This should say C minus. I caught myself. I'll fix it right now. Here, I tell you what, I don't want, well, I should go back in there and just fix it in real time so we don't have Brian Lenney claiming that I've skewed this, all right? It's a C minus, everybody, okay? I think you can clearly see that, a 71.4%. I copied, pasted, and then changed the numbers to match between the two. It happens. 71.4. How did the Club for Growth rate Moyle himself? Look at that. It's even worse. I bet Mike Moyle right now, if he sees this, is going to be like, doggone it, Brian, why didn't you just keep your mouth shut? Why? I think this is probably going to cause more problems for Brian by bringing them up because his score was better on the AI. I think I find a little humor in that. I'm sorry, but I'm only human. A 51, that's even a low F. His lifetime score isn't even a D. An F. So here's your overall difference. Drum roll, please. Club for Growth gives him a 71.4. Idaho Republican Platform AI gives them a 68.4. Those are your committee positions. That's the average across the board. It's a 3-point spread, folks. A 3-point spread. So, I don't know about you. I think the AI is doing a pretty accurate job because these are based that you should expect a little bit of a spread because they're based on different matrix. Okay. Are they following the GOP platform or not? The humans that took a look and decided if they're really conservative or not, gave them a 71.4. The AI who looks at it without any emotion involved, gave them 3 points lower. I don't think that's too bad. How about you? Now, this is where things get scary because I'm a curious person. I just wanted to know for myself. And then I had to bring it in front of you. Moyle's committee chairs from last year's voting, 2024, the guy they're all fighting for, the guy that's causing all that's the center of all of this controversy, whether or not we should keep Moyle in there. How did the Idaho Freedom Foundation rate him? And I didn't use him in the comparison because they do things a little different. They have two different indexes. They separate spending and freedom, which I really like too, by the way. This gets a little bit spooky. Let's take a look at these numbers all the way across the board again when you break it down between the two. Again, they rate the bills, not the people. Resources, 77. Okay, so by the way, let's just get back over here real quick so you can see which one's which. I gave you the freedom indexes in green, the spending indexes in orange. All right. Blow this up again for you so you can actually see it. Okay, here we go. So we have our freedom index is a 77, a C in resources, an F in spending. Look at appropriations, folks. Now, I rounded all of them to the nearest next number. I rounded the decimals up just in the interest of space and keeping this clean. I used typical rounding matrix. Okay, so if it's a 75, then it's point anything. If it's a 70.5, then I get, or 0.6 or 0.7, then I round it up. It's a 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, I rounded down, just to be fair and transparent. But her score was so shockingly low. This is not a typo. In spending, the chair over appropriations got a 2.8 in spending. Lance Clow, an F in spending, an F in freedom, and an F in spending. Look at that score. He is a spendaholic, right alongside her. Spendaholic. Commerce, F. Education, F. Environment, a B and a C minus. Ethics, Brent Crane gets a C, and the spending he did a little better, and free, but he likes big government. He likes that big government over there. Health and welfare, F. Judiciary, B minuses. Local government, a C minus and an F in spending. Boy, Moyle sure likes the spenders, doesn't he? He wants the ones that just say, yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's just government money, right? It's government money. We got plenty of it. We'll take some more from the Fed. Hey, we need more money over here. Bring in the dump trucks. We need more money. We want to spend. We're not going to say no to anything, buddy. If you ran your household like this, you'd be broke. Resources, B minus and a D. Revenue and tax, D plus and an F. Look at that score, 25. It's disgusting. State affairs, and Brent Crane again. Transportation, D and a D minus. And then right on over here to business to end it all off. Let me just get out of the way. A D minus and an F. Want to see how they all tally up? So Moyle's cabinet, or committee chairs rather, a 67.5 in freedom and a 51 in spending. They like to spend your money. Again, this is the mountain you're dying on. Brian Lenney, why are you attacking the Gang of Eight when this is what's happening? Why aren't you speaking out against Moyle as loudly as you are the Gang of Eight? Why aren't you speaking out against his committee chairs? You're supposed to be a conservative. You claim to be this great conservative. You claim to be on the side of freedom and small government, all the things that we want. And your voting matches up fairly well, a B. But why are you supporting this guy? And by the way, here's his scores. 58.9 and a 22.1. He fails in freedom. He fails in spending, but you're supporting him. You are causing all of this rift. You're allowing all of this division. You are destroying the only hope we have for a conservative Idaho. Driving away supporters that bring in a lot of money and a lot of boots on the ground resources, a lot of resources that would really help the conservative movement. You're driving them away. You're driving away the Gang of Eight. You got Dorothy Moon out there saying that she hopes that the Gang of Eight never becomes 10. Dorothy, what's wrong with you? What does Moyle have? I don't understand it. What is it? It's power. Kiss the ring. Kiss the ring, and I'll give you what you've always wanted. You'll get one of those committee chairs. Just kiss the ring. Just kiss the ring. I'll give it to you. That's what the problem is. It's disgusting. I'm sorry. It is. It's absolutely disgusting. I hate seeing this. And I can't believe the side of this that you guys are on. I'm bringing the receipts, Brian. Okay? Complain all you want, but I'm bringing it. Argue the facts. Let me bring it back up. Here you go. Let's read this again. Let's zoom in. You really need to read this. They said, we believe Speaker Moyle presently offers the best opportunity for House members and conservative legislators to continue to make inroads into getting more liberty-minded people into the legislature and into key decision-making roles within the House. Really? Really? Come on. It's bunk. I don't know what you really. Look who he put in there. This is the hill you're dying on. This is what you're getting all worked up about. Give me a break. Want a little bit of Bible in this because I'm getting myself worked up. I had to add a little in. I knew I was going to get worked up when I got here. Daniel 1:8. When it comes to integrity, he said, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore, he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. He would not. He had integrity. Integrity is standing up and saying, no, I don't care how powerful you are. I don't care what you can give me, how much of the king's meat, how much of all the lavish promises you make. I don't care. And that's what the Gang of Eight did. And that's what they continue to do today. And these two sweet senators that you are defaming, that's what I call it. I can't imagine any other word for it, guys. Defaming. Yeah, I'm a little worked up. But Daniel held strong to his faith. He had faith that if he held strong to his principles, in this case, if you hold strong to the platform that you supposedly stand behind, that you represent, you're not. You can't say that when you're supporting Moyle. You can't. You can't say that you're standing strong. You can't. Maybe you're protecting your score, but behind the scenes, the person you're supporting, this is what's really happening. You're willing to compromise dearly. You're compromising with our freedom. You're compromising with our money by supporting him and the chair positions that he has put in there. So that you can get a seat at the table. That's the table you want a seat at with those people. You should be holding strong to your principles like Daniel did, and still the king listened to him. Now we move on to the pay raise. What pay raise? Remember when the legislators gave themselves a pay raise? Well, they didn't give it to them. They just decided not to vote against it. Well, this is what it's about, because guess what? Some of our strong conservatives on principle said it's disgusting to give ourselves a pay raise when everybody's struggling right now, so we don't want it. But by the way, Stop Idaho Rhinos, thanks for posting this today. Or I guess, it was an hour ago when I got on there. It was right in the middle of putting this show together for you. Going all the way back to the legislative pay raise is very important in knowing where this conservative rift started, or one of the reasons. Many of the new establishment people will tell you that legislators cannot vote themselves a pay raise. This is 100% true. They cannot, but they can stop it if they want to. So let me zoom in on the rest of that. However, they failed to tell you that both, there's that name again. Everybody see that? Can I get my finger pointing over there the right way? Okay, over there. Look at that, Mike Moyle and his former Senate counterpart, Chuck Winder, along with 2 Democrats, asked for it. But you want to know what's really disgusting? You know what's worse? King Mike Moyle. And I love that they used King, by the way. Kiss the finger, kiss the ring, right? I'll give you everything you want. I'll give you, Heather Scott, I'll give you a 43% pay raise. King Mike Moyle asked for a 43% pay raise, not the 22% that the committee ultimately settled on. 43%. 43%. 43%. Who gets a 43% pay raise out there? Raise your hand. Who would like that? Oh, yeah, I'd like that. Oh, yeah, vote for Moyle. I'll get a pay raise. Oh, looky here. Pat my pockets. Oh, Moily. Look at the promises coming down from the king if you just come sit at the table and eat the free meat and all the wonderful things I'm going to give you. Who in the House or Senate needed a pay raise? And we're not going to run again, or they're not going to run again unless they're able to be paid more. Do your research. It's out there. And by the way, I know who it is, but I'm not sure if I can even say it because lawsuits were threatened because a third party in Idaho is a one-party consent state in a recording. So if one of you knows, and if 2 people are talking and one of you knows it's being recorded, that's okay. But a third party happened to record Heather Scott and someone else. Okay, Heather Scott and Maria Nate having an argument. That's all I'm going to tell you. Go look around out there. You'll find the rest of that story. Stop Idaho Rhinos. What I love about them is they bring in receipts, and here they are. There's the receipts. You can go on their page. I'm not going to pull these up in full because I want you to go to their page and support them. I want you to go to their X page right now or after this show. Go over there and take a look at them, and you can blow these up. You can read them. But here's the important part: the signature page. This is when they were asking for the pay raise, and all of the charts and graphs and everything in these pages that they were showing. But look at right there. Looky. Look who signed it. Mike Moyle, Chuck Winder. Okay. Oh, look at that. Melissa, the minority leader, missed 2.8% spending score. Guys, this is the dirty part of the back politics, the stuff you don't see behind the scenes. This is all the playground rules, all the nastiness that takes place. You know, we try to be positive. We want to keep a positive message out there, but you need to understand the nastiness, because Brian Lenney is right in the middle of it too, guys. Okay, he's out there, and I'm sorry, I don't like getting into calling people out this much. I want to call out the actions, but the actions right here. Okay, this is why he's defending it so much. This is why he's trying to say, oh, look over there. Don't look over here. Oh, let me give it a little spin. Let me give it a little twist. Oh, it's all hype. Oh, none of this matters. Don't look over there. Oh, don't look at my dirty little secrets hidden in the closet, folks. You wanted the receipts, buddy. You accused me of not bringing them. I'm just giving you what you want. So Stop Idaho Rhinos also popped this up there today. One of the reasons for the rift between the principal conservatives and the new establishment in Idaho is the legislative pay raise. Representative Dave Levitt lays it out nicely in a letter that's explained here. Ultimately, all roads lead to King Moyle. They see it too. They see it too. And thank you, Stop Idaho Rhinos. They made a clip. They went into that 2.5 hour interview and clipped out the portion where I read the letter. Go back and you can go over there to Stop Idaho Rhinos and you can listen. It's about 10 minutes. Okay. They break this, they break it down. This little section of it is about 10 minutes. And David Levitt, Representative Levitt, love him to death, outlined it all for you. And I read the letter in full that he sent me. And you can see it for yourself. There's the receipts. So Brian got a little snarky. I think it's kind of disgusting that he called it True Idaho News Jesus. Really? I think our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ deserves a little more reverence than this, but okay. True Idaho News Jesus. Depart from me, I never knew you. Me. But why, Lord? I believed in the penal substitutionary atonement and trusted you with my life. True Idaho News Jesus. You got a B in 7A on a ChatGPT scorecard some Idaho blogger made. Me. Okay. Is it okay? I brought the receipts, everybody. Is this truthful? Is this a fair representation of what took place in that podcast? I've brought it to you. You can go out and watch it in whole if you want to, but from what I brought to you today, is this a true representation of what took place? I don't think so. But I'm bringing it to you to decide yourself. Is this true? Is he being honest? I'm saying used to it, but the new part is saying I lost my faith in God because of an AI scorecard. Is that what I said? Really, Brian? Is that what I said? I brought the clips. You can go back and watch the full. If you don't believe me, those of you watching, if you don't believe me, the podcast is still up. This is not the message. This is not at all the message. He's spinning it around. He doesn't want you to know the truth. He wants you to know his version of it. And I can't call him a narcissist, but he sure has the tendencies from what I've seen and heard. But that's hearsay, and I don't want to dive into that. I want to bring the receipts to you, but sure looks like it, because he sure got worked up over a couple mentions. And all over this guy. All over this guy. This is who they're throwing their support behind. 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful. This is why I brought up faith in that 2-hour and 20-minute podcast. And here's where a lack of faith, many of you know the story, a lack of faith leads to conflict. You remember when God promised Abraham and Sarah a son, but they were both advanced in age and they hadn't conceived yet. Okay, they were old. And they were like, hey, we can't have any kids. And God said, well, you're going to have one. And they went, you're right. Well, so they waited. They were like, okay, well, God said it, so it must be true. And then they waited and waited. And then Sarah got impatient. Remind you of somebody? Sarah got impatient. And in her impatience, she suggested that Abraham have a child with Hagar, their servant. So Ishmael was the result. So this resulted in Hagar becoming pregnant and giving birth to Ishmael. Hagar's pregnancy and subsequent treatment by Sarah led to conflict and jealousy within the household. Isn't that what we have going on right now within our conservative party? God warns us in his word, guys. Brian, you're a Christian, man. A lot of you are. Most of those people that we supported are. They claim. and I believe them. I'm not discounting their claim. We're all human. Okay. We get off track sometimes. Hagar's pregnancy and subsequent treatment by Sarah led to conflict and jealousy within the household, and the long-term consequences. The conflict foreshadowed the future strife between the descendants of Isaac and Ishmael, a conflict that continues to this day. Seeing about it in the paper. The lessons that we should have learned. The story highlights the importance of trusting God's timing and the potential consequences of taking matters into one's own hands. This is what I was talking about. Not he lost his faith, that he's turned from God or anything, but it was in one moment, one thing, Abraham and Sarah, one thing they lost their faith in. They got impatient and they did it their way. Instead of waiting on God to do it his way, they jumped the gun and did it their way. It's exactly what happened in our conservative network in Idaho. They did it their way. Some of them held strong. Some of them held to truth. And in their embarrassment, the rest of them got a little upset. It's always embarrassing when somebody else holds to their faith and then you try to do it your way and it blows up in your face, and it's blowing up in their face right now with Moyle. I'm sorry. I speak truth here. All over Moyle. A guy with a 58.9% freedom score and a 22.1% spending score. That's what we got. That's what your impatience and lack of faith. We could have had somebody better. And in the end, it was proven that we could have, but we ended up with him again. All because you wanted a seat at the table. I want to end with biblical traits of a godly leader for all of us. This is what we should be looking for when we elect somebody. We need somebody who's got some humility. We need people with compassion, integrity, wisdom, courage, faithfulness, servant leadership, Spirit-led. They have a clear God-centered vision for the future and inspire others. Accountability. See, this right here is the problem. Right now, Brian's upset because there's some accountability and he's lashing out like a child. And you know what? It doesn't need to be this way. Just recognize you made a mistake, admit it, move on. I think the rest of us would hold you in a much higher regard if you just recognize your mistake. You've been a little more patient, but instead you're lashing out. And empowerment. They invest in the growth and development of others instead of tearing them down. And that's what we've been seeing is a lot of tearing people down. I'm not trying to tear Brian down. I'm just trying to, he works for me. He works for you. He works for all of us. He's one of our legislators. And so it's our responsibility to speak amongst each other and as employers and decide, are they doing a good job or not? Okay, it's like a board meeting. This is me speaking at the board meeting. If you want to speak back, get yourself a podcast. Come on, speak back. Okay? But they work for us, so we should be discussing this. This isn't gossip. We should be discussing this, and we should be having serious conversations, and we should hold them accountable. And they should accept that accountability with a little bit of dignity and poise. So, all in all, I've shown you, these were false accusations. Some random guy didn't drag you through the mud, Brian. I mentioned your name twice. And I wasn't cozying up with two DC lobby-controlled Idaho state senators. They have proven time and time again, the whole reason you're ticked off at them is because they held strong to their principles when you did not. And you don't like the accountability. You don't like the way it feels to know that somebody else had more faith than you. It happens. Don't get mad. Just use it as a lesson. Look at yourself and say, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But don't come out and make false accusations. They're not controlled by anybody but God. It's obvious. And then claiming, you said I claimed that you lost your faith in God and compromise yourself all because you didn't get a perfect A+ score. No, that's not what it was. It was that you put your faith in Moyle instead of God. For some obscure AI-generated scorecard thrown together by an Idaho blogger, and that's not the truth at all either. They spent years putting this together and a lot of hard work. And thank God they did, because we need these resources so that we can see who we're voting for and how we're voting for them. You know, I hope before you come out again, that you just take a little bit of time. I think we all need to see this sometimes. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. Don't be dishonest. Don't twist and contort things when you got your hand caught in a cookie jar of King Moyle. Now, you did ask a question, and I want to answer your question. Your question to me was, do his podcast guests have anything to show for their time in the 2020-25 Idaho session? And my answer to you would be absolutely they do. First of all, their votes. Go look at their votes. They voted right, like almost every time. More times than you, buddy. But more than that, if you take a look at the biblical traits of a godly leader, in the face of adversity, here's what they came out of it with. Their integrity intact, their character intact, their faith intact, their humility, go watch the podcast, guys, intact. And their trustworthiness as a result is intact. The resolve and their scores reflect all of it.